Hi, this is Kim Watson. In this video I'm just going to look at the sort of bigger picture in terms of what's happening with the euro, pound and other key currencies. So looking at the euro first, and we can see here there was a divergence into these highs, and like a double divergence, it's rolled over quite a big time. Looking at support on the 34 moving average last Friday, but already I'm recording this on the Monday the 25th, and we can see it's broken through that and run towards the daily 50. Hasn't quite got there. There's still a little bit of space here on this chart here, so there's the potential for it still to come down to that sort of level. However, it could bounce from there. There is if we look into the weekly picture, and you can see here from this we've actually put a pivot swing pattern in, the three candles from leading into last week, so the previous 1, 2, 3, so we've put a pivot swing which is looking quite negative effectively. However, that's and it's almost a bullish engulfing. It's not quite body wise, it certainly was, so it's certainly suggesting strong weakness there, but running into support of the lower bands here as well. There's a little bit of conflict in the short term here which may be sorted out relatively quickly as we run into the week. And the important thing is, if we see the break of the daily 50 here, well then I think we'll see a continuation. Support's not particularly clear here. In fact, let's just come back to the weekly chart, and you can see even on this chart, well, we may run down to the monthly S1 pivot, but there's no clear support areas. We'll come back to the daily. Probably the clearest area was around this 1.0810 sort of level. Those prior highs where we had some resistance at that point, hasn't been back to test that area, so it may provide some support. As I said, otherwise really looking down towards that monthly S1 pivot. We've got a few days left in this month, so there is a potential for it to run down to that. Didn't quite clip the monthly upper pivot there, but got within a gnat's whisker, so there's a possibility that's as far as it goes, but we'll see. As I say, for me the pivotal area is whether we can break this 50 MA. If it sees the bounce from the air kiss of it and continues to the upside, well, the market may get to see the bounce from here. The risk from a fundamental point of view is the news, and particularly the Greek news. We've got G7 meeting later in the week, but more so is some sort of agreement needs to be seen out in the Greece bailout situation. Okay, looking then at the pound dollar. Now the pound's had much more strength than the euro in overall terms. It's still looking relatively strong, well above its monthly pivot at the moment. It's come out to the weekly pivot, weekly view, and a bit of an inside bar. That's all. So not significantly weak. I was hoping for us to come up to and test in a couple of weeks ago, hoping to see that weekly pivot tested. Weekly 50 MA tested, but never had happened. Now there's a few signals on here which are suggesting a potential weakness. Well, the inside bar is probably not helping things. I mean, it's pretty much gave back the previous week's gains, but we've seen the cross of the 5200 here on the weeklies. So from a weekly perspective, it still remains relatively weak. We've not got a lot of support. You've got the 34 still facing south. So lots of these key moving averages pointing south, which may suggest that we'll see a continuation or maybe a bit more of a correction going forward. Looking at coming back to the dailies, and what's that really give us? Well, this is the first test on this 21 moving average, which is good and strong. Short term may hold us, but looking at the pivot swing again, that's been kicked in here. So we've got the same sort of price action, or candle action should I say. You've got these three candles, 1, 2 and 3. Sorry, just highlight them. Close below the prior lows there. Now it's broken already fractionally, but this in general, when you see these happen so often, there's a bullish one here, you often see a reversal. Not quite set up on this one here for the downside, but certainly a good bullish one down the bottom here. Often when you see them, there's a bearish one, you see some follow through from them if they really trigger. This is triggering on light volumes here, so I'm a little bit skeptical, but it could still Actually, it might have been just a fractional one there. So you often see some follow through. So that's again suggesting weakness. But if it holds up on this 21 on this week trading day, well, who knows? It may see a bigger bounce. But overall, with the uncertainty in the markets, we may just see money going back towards the dollar. Okay, that's the pound. Looking at the dollar yen. Eventually, now I say eventually because it was sitting in such a tight range for such a long period here, which for me, it just wasn't. I haven't traded it, haven't really been much interested. But this week has pushed out of that range. I know Charlie called a nice trade on it, and quite a few traders got into a position on the yen, and it's eventually gone there, broken through the trend line that was sitting there, pushed up nicely. Continuation possible again. Well, no, not a pivot swing there at all. Sorry, I'm almost wanting to see a pivot swing, but certainly got the possibilities of running back towards the highs there to maybe tomorrow. It is getting, when you start getting towards those highs though, they are sort of currently pretty close to the near-term historic highs anyway. So that we've seen from last year into this year. So we'll see. Just if it pushes through there, I'm sure there'll be stops to be taken. But at the moment, we may just see it come back within range. Otherwise, and maybe test the lower bands, etc., through the earlier part of the week. But it's certainly a currency that's been range trading for some time. Looking then finally at the Aussie dollar. The Aussie dollar had a harder week last week. In fact, when we look at the weekly charts here, weekly would be good. And again, you can see that actually on the weekly charts, again, we put a pivot swing in. This has got the 3 candles there, 1, 2, 3, and it's put the pivot swing in, which could see it giving up some more. I mean, the target a long time ago was around about the 7.5 area, 0.75. It is just sitting on the lower bands here. Can it hold on to this? It's never really had a close out the upper band, or maybe just fractionally there, so perhaps it may have enough to see it kick. Certainly in a week ahead, we could see a lot more chop of these currencies, and this may be no exception. So from a daily perspective, we've bouncing just fractionally off the daily 50 at the moment, so it actually has touched. Overall, it looks to me relatively weak, that you could be selling into any sort of strength coming into here, be looking for sell points. But for now, we just watch how this goes. I'd be tempted to sell into the upper bands and the daily 8 moving average here, depending how it goes over the next day or so. But certainly it could be points. We've got things rolling over for us. Okay, the 50 moving average is still pointing up, at the 200 strongly down. Everything's looking a bit iffy from where we're sitting here. Okay, that's it for me. From looking at the technical point of view, as I say, if you watch the video on the key news events, you'll see there's quite a few events which may create extra volatility throughout this week. That's it for me. Have a great one. Bye for now.